Welcome to class number 3, how to stir the heart and mind of your reader. I want to open with another challenge. Nobody in this world is obligated to finish reading your book. Listen, we got 2-year prophetic school curriculum. And I promise you, the only reason why my students read all those books is because they want to graduate. Now, I've got some of my students that read and study because they love the Lord and they want to progress in their calling, but they are the minority. They are the minority. Usually these are students that are well studied. They're used to studying. They enjoy study. They read all the time, but they are the minority. So what do you do to get people to read your book all the way through? Well, that's what I'm going to teach you in this class. And it's a little easier than you think. In fact, once you learn this power principle, it's going to change the way you write. It's going to change the way you write on social media. It's going to change the way you write on your book. It's going to change the way you write emails to people. It's going to change everything. Once I'm finished this session, we have Prophet Deborah Ann Veldhuizen coming on, and she is going to unlock your prophetic flow, because I'm going to help you target your audience, but then she's going to come and unlock your prophetic flow so that when you do begin to write, you connect spiritually with your audience and not just emotionally. So I'm going to teach you more the natural side, if you will, and then she's going to help trigger the spiritual side. So you really can take notes, step 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to do a quick cut here, and I'm going to tell everybody that participated in that homework, I am going to be gifting you the, what do I call it again? The dossier. Thank you, Dalton. The dossier that we are creating for this course. Now, before you think you're just getting a little PDF, I need you to understand what this dossier is going to have in it. It's only for my apprentices at the moment. And what it's going to have is every single one of the notes that I've preached. It's going to have all the notes from the transcribing teaching, from the formatting teaching, from the editing teaching, and not just that. It's going to include all the step 1, 2, 3, how to transcribe, how to format your book. It's going to include a reading book list. It's going to include all the systems you need, like Grammarly and Hemingway and Rome Research, a bunch of systems that we've been teaching our apprentices how to use to get their work out there. In that book, the things that we can't cover in the videos, we're going to cover in the book, like where to get your ISBN, how to upload your document to KDP. All of these will be in the dossier, absolutely free for our apprentices. And we are going to sell it for an upgrade of $49.99 for those of you who can't afford to be apprentices but still want the dossier. I'm considering publishing it as a printed manual to make available online as well. But for now, you guys can get a hold of it. It will be shipped out to you after the last lesson. It is currently being formatted and it's looking beautiful. But for every single one of you that submitted that homework, I know my team was taking down names. You'll get a copy for absolutely free, because I want to appreciate you for investing into your call, into your purpose, and giving me your time. I honor your time. I respect your time. And I know that there are many other courses you could be watching out there. So I want to give some of that honor back to you guys as well. Okay? So I'm excited to work a little bit more with you guys. Are we ready to work, ladies and gentlemen? Are we ready? Come on, stretch it out. You've been sitting too long at the computer. All right, do you have computer stretches? I have computer stretches. They look like this. I have to stop in the middle of my writing like, oh my goodness, my back is killing me because I've sat in the same position for the last 3 hours. So stretch yourself out and let's get ready to write. Class number 3. How do we stir the heart and mind of your reader? We all know this saying, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Now, a lot of you may know my love for Nespresso coffee. I am a coffee snob. I travel with my own Nespresso machine everywhere I go. I do, because life is too short for bad coffee, my friends. Life is too short for cheap filter coffee. And the older you get, the more you appreciate that there are just some things in life you don't let go of. But we also have quite the tea culture in our family. Because we've gone to so many places, we have so many. I've got a tea drawer that is packed with so many teas all over the world that there's some of them that have been there for years because we never get to finish all the tea. Now, what's crazy is each one of my kids like different teas. No two of them like the same tea. Like Rebecca has this one chai rooibos tea that you can only get in Woolworths in South Africa. It's not even in all of South Africa. It's in one specific store in South Africa. On one little shelf is her cup of tea. She's a very particular, picky tea drinker. And it has to be that version of chai. It can't be any other. It has to be that one. And so every time one of the family come over from South Africa, they have to get them little selves to Woolworths in South Africa and go buy her particular tea. And then she guards every tea bag like her life depended on it. Guess what? That's Rebecca's cup of tea. Nobody gonna mess with Rebecca's cup of tea. She's gonna savor that cup of tea for 2 hours is what she does because it's her cup of tea. What is your cup of tea? What do you like to drink? Even when it comes to coffee, Craig and I don't even like the same kind of coffee. We have two sleeves. That is his sleeve. That is my sleeve. Don't touch my sleeve of coffee. If you touch my sleeve of coffee, it runs out quicker. We don't want to do that to me. Not in the morning. Nobody needs to see that. What is your cup of tea? What is it that you love to have and makes you different from everybody else? Now, as you're looking through all the comments and as we're looking at all these different teas you can possibly get, look at how diverse we are. Look at how crazy focused we are. My goodness. I'm looking here at the responses and we've got chai matcha tea, London fog. I legitimately do not know what that is. Trader Joe's organic Sumatra. Oh my goodness. Dandelion tea, jasmine tea, these rooibos tea. Here we go. We've got those that can reach out a little bit. Green tea, African solstice tea, Ethiopian coffee from a local roaster, the bean. Are you following? Are you tracking? I'm reading out these examples for a point. I'm not just actually, I'm also really having fun with this. I had no idea you had African solstice tea. Sweet, good earth, sweet and spicy tea. Earl Grey tea, Theodora. You see, I knew we had something in common. Earl Grey tea. I absolutely love Earl Grey tea as well. I also like lavender. Actually, lately I've been enjoying some lavender with chamomile at night. That makes me happy. But do you see how specific these teas are? Every single reader has their own cup of tea. Every reader that's going to pick up your book has their own way of drinking tea, drinking coffee. If you don't believe me, visit Starbucks sometime and listen to people place their coffee orders. Add this, take away that. I want this milk, and I want that sugar, and I want that whipped cream, and I want that sprinkle, and I want it in that size cup. And then I want you to stand on your head, and then I want you to jump onto one foot and cluck like a chicken, and then give me my coffee. Yes, people have very particular ideas of how they like their coffee. And your reader has a very particular idea of what they want from life, what they desire to attain in life, and how they were shaped for life. So if I invite all of you today in this moment for an English tea, which tea am I going to serve? Because I can't serve them all. Mango tea. You see? Decaf venti, white chocolate mocha, single shot of espresso with oat milk and easy whip. I do not have easy whip in my life. Bridget is not being invited to the party. If I had a tea party, how am I going to find all this tea for all these people? And that's the first mistake you make when writing your book, is that you try and write a book that's everybody's cup of tea. And in the end, you're nobody's cup of tea. Because every one of us have such particular tastes because of the shaping process we've gone through in life. just like you. Now, I have good news for you. There are people in this world that want to have a decaf venti, white chocolate mocha, single shot of espresso with oat milk and easy whip. Wow. There are other people in this world. Yes, they are. And you were shaped for them. You have the language for them. You have the life experience for them. So instead of writing for people who like PG tips or mango tea, why don't you write for people that are your cup of tea, that can relate to you? You will find your comfort zone when you are writing a book that is going to reach your audience. You gotta kind of reach your audience. So let's spend a little time today looking at who is your audience in the first place. What is their cup of tea? What do they like to drink, and how do they like to drink it? What is going to connect you as the writer, the author, and them as the reader? Because make no mistake, you're inviting them to a tea party. You're inviting them to grab your book on a cold day, snuggle up under a duvet with that said favorite cup of tea or that favorite cup of coffee, and to go through its pages one at a time. And the two of you are about to embark on a relationship. Now, I don't know about you, but I am very picky about my relationships and what I share with people in my life. If I'm going to go on such an intimate journey with you, I've got to like you. I've got to know you. And that is why we're going to take some time today to get to know your audience. Because when you get to know them, you can unlock your prophetic flow. You can unlock the message that's inside of you for them. I want you to see that person on their couch with their duvet on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon when the kids are finally playing outside or doing something that's not bugging them, and they pick up your book. How are you going to engage them? I'm going to ask you your first question. This is where you're going to start taking notes. What is the point of your book? Don't tell me just to write it. Wrong answer. Nobody in this world just reads a book for the sake of reading it. You don't. There's a reason you pick that book up. There's a reason you read it. Even for movies, there's a reason you watch it. Why? To learn, to be entertained, to have an escape. There's a reason. There's always a reason why you switch on. There's a reason why you go to a YouTube video, and there's a reason why you read a book. So what's the point of your book? What is its call to action? Let me ask it like this. By the time your friend on the couch there that you've invited to the tea party takes their last sip of tea and closes your book, what is the one thing you want them to walk away with? Now, I know that your book is going to cover a lot of different subjects, but what do you want them to walk away with? When you do that, you begin to see and understand your audience. All right, I'm going to put my focus on do not disturb here. All right. Now let me ask you, as you see your audience, what kind of person needs to walk away with that conclusion? I want you to see them. When you can see your audience, you're going to be able to follow on to my next step. But before I can even help you write for them, do you even see them? Who is your audience, guys? You're just writing a book, but you were created for someone. You were created for purpose. You were created to express the nature of God in a very particular way in this earth. And you were created as such. Because there's someone out there sitting on that couch needing what you have to give them. It's not about what you have to offer as much as what they need to receive. So when you can see what they need to receive, it aligns your writing immediately. What should they walk away with? And then I've got to think to myself, let me take my latest book, Rise of the Prophetic Champions. Now, what do they need to walk away with? I tell you right now, they better walk away with the sword. They better walk away with the sword. You better not finish my book, Rise of the Prophetic Champions, and you walk away with anything less than your sword. Ready to use it, ready to build with an apostle, ready to establish the kingdom. right? So if I know that by the time that person is finished reading my book, they have to have a sword, what does my reader look like? They are blood-stained. They are warriors that have seen battle after battle after battle. They are tired. They've been misaligned. They've failed more times than they can count. They're frustrated. They've had victories. They've had losses, and they don't really know what they have sometimes. Sometimes they look at their sword and they don't know how to use it. Sometimes they don't realize they have a sword. But I tell you something about my reader. Every single one of them has a heart of a champion. And you can be sure from the first sentence to the last, I pulled on that heart. I called them out. I demanded their attention. Champions, where are you? Do you know your audience? Can you see them? When I wrote today's pastor, there were no swords. You're listening to the title, Pastor for Today. There's no swords. A very, very different audience, very different angle completely. If you don't know your audience from the time you start your introduction, you're going to get stuck. And you're not going to finish the book. And you're not going to get the prophetic flow that you're hoping to achieve as you write. That flow is going to get stuck. If you continually get writer's block, and if you continually ask yourself, what is my book about? And what should I be writing on? And what's the topic of my book? The answer to you is this. It's a question. Who's your audience? You haven't found your audience yet. If you don't know what to write, you haven't found your audience yet. That's why. Because when I knew I had to write for the prophetic champions out there that have been to hell and back again, when I knew I had to fight, but I had to speak to champions who've been through a process that don't understand what's going on, I knew the tone had to change. I knew my language had to change. And when I aligned myself with them, the flow was organic. So, can you see it? I want you to write a description of them. You know, Dr. Steve Green said it to me perfectly because he applied this principle even for podcasts. For those of you who are podcasters, for those of you who do any kind of, can you guys just practice this on Facebook? We just throw up stuff on Facebook about our lives. Instagram as well. You throw up stuff, right? Who's your audience? Who's your audience? Try deliberately throwing up stuff that targets your audience, that needs to hear your voice, that you have been shaped for, and watch everything change on social media for you. For those of you who are still figuring out how to write that book, let's go ahead and do some practicing on social media, okay? So this is the project Dr. Green gave me. He said, imagine your podcast had a movie poster. You know, like those posters you see just outside the movie house that advertises. Now, every single one of those movie posters are designed very specifically. We're going to learn more about that in class number 5 when we go into graphics and the imagery for your book. And he said, good, I want you to imagine your audience, Colette. What do they look like? If you had to get a movie poster printed of them to attract them, what does it look like? He said, now every time you sit down to podcast, I want you to see that. So it's easy. Every time Craig and I sit down to podcast for the Next Gen Prophets, I see you. I see the Next Gen Prophets. I see you in process. I see you in all your different countries. I see you in churches that don't accept the prophetic. Some of you are in prophetic churches, and yet still, how do you manage to be the black sheep in a prophetic church? You're a Next Gen Prophet. Somehow you find a way, right? Well, that's my audience. And when I started speaking for our audience, my tone changed. I challenge you. I speak to you like I'm sitting right in front of you. And this is exactly what I'm teaching you to do in your book from the very first chapter. Now that you can see your audience, I want you to feel your audience. Remember, I taught you, actually in the last 2 classes already, don't waste your emotion by not doing any writing. If you got angry or frustrated this week and you wasted it by venting instead of writing, this is my frowny face. This is my unimpressed face with you. See the glare? The mama glare? Yeah. My kids know it. Like, what were you thinking? Why did you waste all that emotion on someone that wasn't going to listen to you anyway? Why did you waste that emotion and not write it down? Don't waste that emotion. Emotion is gold. It's powerful. It's beautiful. Write it down. Sort through it later. Was it oppressed? Maybe. We can figure that out later. We can rewrite it, but get it down. Learn to express yourself, guys. Because when you do that, you're going to learn to feel your audience. Let me ask you this. Once you see your audience, I'm going to ask you a question. Because especially those of you who are more prophetic, you're going to see it. It's very easy for you. See them. All right, I see my audience. I know who they are. What are they feeling? What are they feeling? You see, I knew my prophetic champions felt tired. I know they felt confused sometimes. I know they felt purposeless. How many battles am I going to fight and still not know my mandate? And then they were also hurt because they've worked with so many leaders they've been taken advantage of. And they weren't sure if it's worth taking a risk on another leader again. But yet, there's also this one thing I know about the prophetic champion, is deep down in their heart, they crave to build. They do take a chance on another leader. They do take another opportunity because it drives them forward. I want you to recognize something. Do you see how well I know my audience? Before I picked up that book to start writing, I saw them. I felt them. I recognized how I'd been shaped for them. So the minute I sat down to write, what came out of me was 100% for them. Then I had to craft it and make sure that it matched them. But I wrote for them. And when you pick up that book, I promise you, you go on a journey with me because I intended it that way. What is your audience feeling? Here's another question I want you to ask. What hurts them? What hurts my audience? Write it down. What hurts my audience? Here's a fun one for you. What makes my audience happy? What makes them feel accomplished and good about themselves? I'm loving all the comments. I'm loving everybody. Throw in all your comments and the engagement. Really, you guys are a fantastic team. You're an excellent class. Love it. What makes them happy? Well, what made my champions happy was to feel seen. Actually, to feel seen and recognized in what they had to contribute. And you'll read the tone throughout the book. I'm challenging because I can't but challenge a champion. Champions are not shades of gray. Champions aren't fence sitters. Champions want to be challenged because they want to grow, but they also want to be seen and recognized for where they have grown. So for me to pull that out and acknowledge it makes them feel good. It makes them feel happy. Now, I've got 2 more questions I want you to answer in just the feeling part, all right, before we move on to the next session. What is their perceived need? What do they think they need? What do they think they need? You see, my champions all think that they need the perfect apostle. My champions think they need more anointing, more gifts, and more tools. And I promise them every single one of those things from beginning to end, because that is their perceived need. Okay, you tracking? What do they think they need? Because I've got a pretty good question following up here. Followed by, what do they really need? What is their real need? What my champions really need and didn't know they needed was peers, was battle buddies. It was maybe a desire of their heart, but they didn't know they needed it. So when I wrote the book, I met their felt need, their perceived need of this is how to connect with an apostle. This is how to get more anointing. This is how to rise up in the ranks. But then I answered the real need, because this is the part that I really wanted them to walk away with. I didn't want them just to walk away with the sword. I wanted them to recognize that they didn't stand alone, that God had brought battle buddies into their lives, peers with swords as well, that they could recognize and fight alongside with. Now, when you can answer all of those questions and connect with all of those needs in your book, you're not an author anymore. You're a tour guide, and you're leading them on a journey that will change their lives. I'm not just teaching you to write. I'm teaching you to recognize your destiny. I'm teaching you to embrace who God created you to be. You were put on this earth for purpose, to change the lives around you. You were put on this earth with a message to heal, to restore, to challenge, to lift up, to tear down, to build, to plant. You're more than a writer. And you need to take what you have and connect it to what your reader needs. When you do that, you do more than write. You change the course of somebody's life. That there is a prophetic destiny that you're fulfilling. And that is why God is having you write. Not just to write, oh, I have to write this book. Why have I written so many books? Because it's my destiny to help you reach yours. That is who I am. I was shaped for you, and you have been shaped for your audience. So when I help you reach your destiny, I help reach everybody else you reach as well. This is so much bigger than you. Writing is so much more than a sideline hobby. It can sit on course the fires of hell. Why? Because it is like the tongue. It can change the mindsets of entire nations. Don't underestimate the power that you hold. Now that you know what they look like, now that you know what they feel, speak to your audience from the very beginning. Don't talk to everybody at the tea party. Talk to that one person that has the toffee nut latte with whipped cream, toffee nut sprinkles, and oat milk that matches you. Find that one guy. Speak to that one person about the whipped cream and the sprinkles. Don't be afraid to be specific. If somebody who isn't your audience stumbles across your book, they may be entertained, but I tell you what they will do, and this has happened to me so many times. They hand the book to somebody whose audience I did try and reach. You're going to love this book. This book is written just for you. You know how many times people write me in, and I'm talking about every single day, and say, this is my story. How did you know me? How did you know this was how I felt? No, because I saw you. I saw you while I was writing. I felt what you were going through. And when I felt that what you were going through, that prophetic flow was unlocked, and God gave me the message you needed to hear 20 years from the day I started writing. He gave me the message for you 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 months ago. For you. There are people that are going to read my book, Rise of the Prophetic Champions, 10 years from now. And they're going to say to me, how did you know I felt that way? And I'm going to tell them the same thing. I see you. I've always seen you, and I believe in you. Because when you pick up my book, we connect and we go on a journey together. And when you recognize that you can feel your audience, your reader, through your process, you're going to cry when you write because you're going to feel their pain. You're going to laugh at the funny parts because you know their sense of humor. You're going to know when your book's getting a little tedious and you're giving too much information because you're going to feel their boredom. And you're going to go and you're going to craft that bit and you're going to rewrite it. Without knowing your audience, you cannot be a writer because we don't write to entertain ourselves. Then why publish? Why put your work out there if it's just for yourself? But even if you are writing for yourself, I sure hope that you know what you look like, you know what you feel, and you can talk straight. Because if you're going to entertain yourself, at least do a good job at that. Speak to their feelings, speak to their minds, speak to their desires, and use the language and tone that they need to hear. I've challenged a lot of my apprentices on focusing their tone. I said, stop trying to be everybody's cup of tea. People have been very offended by my books. About those negative reviews on Amazon, yes, you're going to get them. But who does she think she... Okay, I got a comment the other day and I kind of chuckled. I mean, they sometimes still sting a bit, but this one did make me chuckle a bit. They said, what gives her the right to be so cocky? And I thought, really though? You have no idea, my friend. Come and have a cup of tea with me and I will lay it out for you. But I tell you what, my audience doesn't ask that. They don't think that I'm cocky. They think, oh, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was feeling. You're talking my language. It is hard sometimes as an author, who's speaking personally with you guys, to have those comebacks. And it's also a little frustrating realizing I can't reach everybody. I can't be everybody's cup of tea, because even as a spiritual mother in me, I want to. I want to be able to reach everybody, but I know that there will always be those that love me, that honor me, and hate me. And there are very few shades of gray. But for those that honor me and those that receive from me, those are the ones that are going to receive the impartation and change. They're the one that's going to get the deposit that I was shaped 25 years to give them. And that is my destiny. If I wrote this book for one person, I have fulfilled destiny. It's funny though, when you write the book for one person, how many other one persons there are out there. You come to your tea party and find the place is packed. Every time I've narrowed my message more and more and more, I've sold more of that book, more and more and more. You can always write another book to another audience. But that book that you're writing today, don't be afraid to speak their language to them. Speak to their heart, speak to their pain, speak to their victory. Don't talk about us and we and them and they, unless you really are saying, you know, they're crazy, not like us, right? We're different. Do you notice that I'm talking to you? I'm not speaking to all the writers out there. To all the writers. No, I'm speaking to you. And I'm teaching you how I write. I'm not teaching you how everybody writes, because you can go and do all their courses. What? They'll be useless. I had nothing to impart to you if I sat here and taught you how every other writer writes. I'm not every other writer. I can only impart to you what I have. I can only impart to you the practical 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps I've learned. But I am talking to you. Make no mistake. I'm talking to your process. I'm talking to your skill set. I'm challenging your mindset, because you're the one sitting in front of me. And when they pick up that book, your reader is the one sitting in front of you. What are you going to tell them? What journey are you going to take them on? Where are you going to lead them? And when the journey comes to an end, where would the two of you have arrived? And what would you have concluded together? Because if you can follow them through on this process, I have another very strong promise for you. I want to teach you this in the 5th lesson. Follow with me. Fifth class, sorry. They're going to read your next book. I very seldom have someone who just buys one of my books and reads that one book. Once they read that one book, they read the next book and the next book. And I promise them the same thing at the beginning of every book. I say to them, let's go on a journey together, you and I. Let's see what God has in store for you. Let's see where we end up and what happens. And I promise you, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to reach into your life. I'm going to stir some things up. But I'm never going to leave you alone. We're going to conclude this journey together. And I hope that every time you do read one of my books, that's how you feel, because it's certainly how I feel every time I write one.